Room 442 is brought to you by North Star Bets. That's a win.
Welcome into Room 442. Another gloomy day here in Toronto. I'm Sara, Poraria, joined with Mikey Singh. Mikey, the weather, it's getting to me.
It's supposed to be nicer this weekend.
I know, which is great because TFC play at home. So hopefully the fans come out, the players have energy because there will be some sunshine finally, maybe.
Very few and far between dates we've had that. But actually, fun fact, I was looking at the attendance numbers in MLS this season, and maybe it's a surprise because the TFC have competed with the Leafs. They've the
Jays started.
The Jays have had to endure some pretty poor weather, but they have the 7th best attendance numbers in Major League Soccer this season.
Who's number one?
Atlanta.
It's warm down there.
It's warm down there. They had the big stadium, and they're putting up better numbers than a lot of teams in Europe. Actually,
that's very bizarre because when we look at BMO Field lately, it doesn't look full, we'll be honest. Partially, I'm assuming because of the weather, partially because of how TFC are playing maybe, but that's kind of shocking. I mean, it's great to hear, but it's a bit shocking, no?
Yeah, we haven't experienced one of those special BMO Field summer nights.
I think it'll come, though, like June, starting
maybe this
June.
Weekend.
Maybe this weekend, because TFC are taking on New England Revolution, top of the Eastern Conference. This is going to be a tough one, Mikey, to say the least. Excuse me, but New England, 10 games played, only one loss so far.
Yeah.
Kind of a surprising, start to their season. No one really thought it was going to be New England leading, especially with teams like Philly dropping so low. And, how tough is this going to be for TFC?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. New England, the way that they've built their squad and built their roster, it's similar to the way TFC actually have gone about it, where it seems like they've really, Bruce Arena type team, they're really tough to break down and they don't concede a lot of goals. If you look at every single one of their matches, except for one game, they haven't conceded more than one goal.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the board just now, so goals for, they have 16, so they're scoring 1.6, so over a goal a game, and they're conceding less than a goal per game with only 9 goals against. And I think they have actually the second best goals against in all of the league.
And what's crazy about that too is if you take away one game, which was their only blip this season, that was against LAFC where they lost 4-0.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about a team that's only conceded 5 goals throughout the whole course of the season.
They're tough.
They don't concede a lot. But on the other side of that, the flip side, they don't score a lot either. They don't score a lot of their goals. If you look at some of their results, it's like 2-1, 1-0, 1-1. They don't put the ball in the back of the net at a ferocious rate. So it's a team that likes to stay tight, stay in games, similar to the way that TFC have been this season. The only difference is New England have found ways to turn some of their games that maybe could have been draws into victories, where if TFC have just settled for draws. So I actually think it's a little bit closer than maybe the standings suggest.
That's fair.
And New England, when they go on the road, they haven't been the best road team in Major League Soccer this season. No one's really great on the road. So TFC at home at BMO Field, where they're unbeaten in 5 and beaten this season, I don't think it's out of the question for TFC to pick up a result here.
Yeah, that's the thing. TFC at home have been great. That's how they've gotten their results, and so hopefully we can see that. But I'm just looking here. You're saying they don't score that much, New England, but they have 16 goals for, which is the second highest in the league after Columbus. So I mean, are actually third. We have Atlanta there too. Excuse me. But like going back to this board, I don't know about that. It seems like they're scoring a lot more. I mean, when you look at TFC have 13, like not a massive difference, but goals against, TFC have 13 as well. Their goal difference is 0. New England's is 7.
Yeah, I think more so when you look at the games individually, like you take away a 3-0 Houston Dynamo win at the beginning of the season, and then a 4-0 thrashing of CF Montreal. They haven't scored more than 2 goals.
I guess, but if we're doing that, then we can also take away, all right, TFC's, poor game against Philly, 4-2. But it's not really how it goes, right? This is the season they've had, and we have to just look at the games they've played. Yeah. We can't, be like...
there's outliers, though, in seasons.
For sure,
right?
for
and
sure.
I think when we're trying to do a deep dive into stats, for example, this early in the season, 1 or 2 games can sway that number overall. So we can't really rely on that too much. I look at like the rest of their schedule, and I look at all the 1-1s and the 2-1s and the 1-0 and the 2-1s. Like, and offensively too, when you look at their strikers, like Gustavo Bo hasn't really established himself as a dominant number 9 like a lot of people thought he would be. Like he was showing signs of being in 2020, 2021. You still have Carlos Gil there, who is absolutely fantastic, a lethal playmaker. But then there's that guy in the end that's missing, and Gustavo Bo hasn't stepped up. Bobby Wood hasn't stepped up and filled that role. And of course, our guy, Jozy Altidore, hasn't stepped up at all and filled that void for New England. So they do have question marks, I think, in terms of the way that they put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, when I'm looking at their stats and who's scoring, it's kind of all over the place. It's not just one specific.
They score by committee, for sure.
Yeah, they have, I don't know how to say his last name, the Albanian Giacomo Veroni. He has the most goals with 3. But yeah,
questionable this weekend, too.
So he might not be there.
He might not play.
And you said Jozy Altidore might not play, even though he hasn't scored. He's only played 4 matches for New England this season. But returning to BMO Field, always huge for former players. But what's going on?
His first time back at BMO Field since being bought out. I know it doesn't feel like that because it's been 2 years since TFC, or a year and a half since TFC have bought him out. But if you think back to last season, he was going to make his return to BMO Field. But 2 days prior to him for New England to face TFC, he decided to go to Liga MX, and New England struck a deal with Puebla in Liga MX, and he joined the Mexican side 2 days before he was going to make his return to BMO Field.
Okay, I have a question, because I was actually talking to someone about this yesterday. Do you find that when teams come to BMO Field to play Toronto, that there's a coincidence that former players or players that you'd want to see don't show up? Now, we saw this with Thiago Almada. He was obviously injured in Atlanta, but I even remember years ago when NYCFC had David Villa and Pirlo. Pirlo didn't play at all that game. And I just think this actually happens quite a bit. Is it something about the travel, you think? Is it just coincidental? Is it the cold? Because I'm actually feeling like this might be a trend.
I don't know. There's been some really prominent big names that have shown up and played at BMO Field.
No, I know. To be fair, I've seen most of them. That's when I'm going to the TFC games.
Exactly, right? They draw fans. Like, I remember Ibra's obviously like his hero. I think it might have been his 500th goal where he did that scorpion back heel. There's been some special moments.
TT was here with that New York Red Bull.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's been a lot of really good players who have come and played in Toronto. I mean, for Jozy Altidore specifically, just speaking about him, I don't know if he's going to play because I don't know if he's going to get minutes. I don't think it has anything to do with the travel.
Okay.
Obviously, you're coming from New England to Toronto. It's not very far. It's more so just the fact I feel like he's just dropped out of the equation for Bruce Arena, and that's been the case with Jozy Altidore since joining New England last season. Remember, they signed him to a pretty big contract. They added an additional year onto his 2 years that were still remaining from his TFC contract because they thought they could get something out of Jozy Altidore. That hasn't happened. I believe over his time in New England, he only has 1 goal in about 24-ish appearances. And like I said, they loaned him out just 6 months after that signing that deal last season, and he has yet to find his footing again this year. He's made 4 brief appearances, as you mentioned, off the bench, limited minutes, but the last 3 games for New England, all competitions, he has not featured yet. So I don't know. It hasn't worked out. We don't know if we'll see him because they have, like I said, Bobby Wood, Gustavo Bo. I don't know, but maybe Bruce Arena tosses him a bone a bit and throws him back on the pitch.
Sometimes players play their former team, it's more of like a mental game, right? So you might see him come on. Also, like, I feel like there would be so many Toronto fans that would be happy just to see him get
a great moment.
The 80th minute sub in, Jozy Altidore. Fans go crazy.
1,000%. He would still get an electric reception here at BMO Field. I've always said this. There's been no one that's been able to ignite a BMO Field crowd quite the way that Jozy Altidore has. And if we can say, objectively speaking, if there's one player in TFC's history who has risen to the big occasion, is up for moments like this, like playing your former team, it's Jozy Altidore. So although things haven't quite gone his way this season, if he comes off the bench and, you know, you hear the fan base, like, that'll go right to his feet, and it could be maybe a move Bruce Arena has up his sleeves to bring Jozy Altidore off the bench to give his side a push, even though he hasn't been the greatest with New England.
Yeah. Let's quickly just talk about how TFC are going to line up here, because they're obviously still experiencing some injured players.
Yeah, I think the big question, the real only question when you look at the roster and the squad that was played last game was whether or not Michael Bradley would be able to get back into the mix. Bob Bradley said last weekend that he expects Michael Bradley only to miss the last game. So far, today is Thursday. Haven't gone to training yet today, but Michael Bradley hasn't featured in team training yet. Now we'll see how the last two days go. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his way out there. And the question is, is he ready to replace Alonso Coelho, who had an unbelievable performance over the weekend in the starting 11? That's a tough decision for Bob Bradley to make, because Michael Bradley's obviously so important. You're facing a good team in New England. We know what he means. We know what he can bring to the side, but Alonso Coelho has that unknown. And like I said, he played really well last time out against a good team in New York City FC. Everyone else, Insigne, Bernardeschi, CJ Sapong up top, that seems to be all intact. Marc-Anthony Kaye, Brandon Cervania as well in the midfield. And then the other, I guess, question mark is Raul Petretta and his status, right? He left last game in warm-ups, felt a little tightness. He isn't trained yet this week either. So, Kobe Franklin, who put in a really good shift last time out, may be in line for some more minutes at left back.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It'll be some big decisions for Bob Bradley, but a big matchup for TFC this weekend. Obviously, potentially returning home Jozy Altidore, we don't know, and potentially TFC keeping their untarnished record at BMO Field. That's TFC New England Revolution, Saturday at 7:30.
Room 442 is brought to you by North Star Bets. That's a win.